go. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. We have got a lot of volume at the moment. Thank you. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting, 27th of February 2024. Item 1 on our agenda tonight. Sorry, those folks with mobiles, just please either on silent or turn airplane mode. Number one on our agenda tonight is the recording and live streaming of council meetings. The CEO will read the following statement. Thank you, Mr. Jeremy.
All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however, audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and improve transparency of council's decision-making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you. Would you like to stand? And we'll have the acknowledgement of traditional custodians. Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the Taungurung peoples as the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional custodians of the wider lands of the area known as the Alpine Shire. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make our decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Item 3, the confirmation of minutes from our January 30th council meeting. A recommendation that the minutes as circulated be confirmed. Thank you, Councillor Janus. Councillor Kelly. Those in favour, thank you. I will. Thank you. Confirmation minutes. Now, we don't have any apologies tonight, but we do have two councillors online. We have Councillor Hughes and Councillor Prime, and I'm assuming that people in the gallery can see them on the other monitor down the other end there. Thank you, that's good. Obituaries and congratulations, and I will start with Councillor Keeble.
Nothing from me.
Nothing from me.
And Kelly, just the light touch.
Councillor Prime. There we go. I've just got one congratulations, and it's to a local young lady from Myrtleford who attends Marion College, Miss Isabel Cook, who has been selected to the Office for Youth, which is an Australian government office, as the Youth Civic Engagement Advisory Officer to the Minister's Office. She is one of 7 young people who are speaking for all the young people in Australia. So one of 7, and she comes from Myrtleford, attending a local college. She'll be required to go to Canberra a couple of times a year to meet with that group, and it's a position she had to apply for from a number of Australian applicants, and she was successful in that role. She's the youngest of all those young people. She's a Year 12 student, and all the others are older in paid employment or being at university. So it's a great achievement for her, and I'd like to congratulate Ms Cook on that achievement.
Thank you, Councillor Janus. Councillor Hughes.
No, nothing from me, thank you.
Councillor Prime.
Yeah, just a quick one from me. Just congratulations to Dedarang and Surrounds for pulling off a fantastic races event on Saturday. And thank you to the Mayor and Councillor Janice and the CEO for coming along as well. And it was a fantastic day. We had horses back on the track. Great turnout, great weather. So it was really good to see the whole community get behind it.
Thank you. Just for those in the public gallery tonight, could you hear Councillor Prime at all? You could? Just? Councillor Prime, can you turn your volume up slightly on your computer?
Justin, I think.
Or Justin might...
Is that any better?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Look, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Prime has said. I was at the Dedarang Race Club and fantastic day out there. The weather was superb for it. It wasn't super hot. And just enjoyed a picnic and the various activities on the day. I'm a little bit amazed at the Mad Mile. After all the races, they have everybody who wishes to run around the track, which is 1,600 metres. They all got out there in bare feet. Some were still in their ball gowns, but it was an interesting spectacle. Very good. I also would like to congratulate the organisers of Spartan, which was held over the weekend here in Bright, especially the CEO of Spartan Australia now, Russell, and his MC Max and the course director Michelle, and the two people involved here at Alpine Shire on the staff that really go out of their way to help these things actually succeed. Spartan in Australia, on the weekend, they broke a couple of records. They had over 4,500 attendees and they had over 650 kids just in the kids event, which I think was absolutely brilliant. The other one was to the Division 24 CFA, who held their championships at Gapstead on Sunday. A big turnout. The championships are held 2 years in a row at Gapstead, then they move to Bethanga for 2 years. They don't advertise these championships as a public event, so really all you get to see are the teams when you go out there. But it's just heartening to see the number of young people that are actually involved in CFA now and running the track and doing all the championship stuff. So that was brilliant. Right, moving on. Item 6, declarations of councillors by conflict of interest. Any conflicts of interest on tonight's agenda? No, thankfully we won't have to put anybody in the sin bin for a while. That's good. Public questions. Item 7. Questions on notice are limited to 2 questions as per the rules on questions on notice. Written questions on notice, which I have 3 tonight, will be taken first, and then we'll have questions from the floor. Anybody who wishes to do that would welcome to. I do ask, though, that you limit yourself to questions and not public statements. If there is a bit of background, give some brief background and then launch into your questions so that we can actually get on with the meeting in a timely fashion. Questions on notice tonight. Question 1, and these I think are just basically in order of them arriving into the office. Question number 1 is from Mr. Brian Littlechild, who I believe is in the audience tonight. Thank you. Question 1. Is Council aware that the Wanty Track is a public highway according to the precedent set by the Victorian Court of Appeal in 2017 in the case of Anderson versus Stonington Council in regard to the proposed closing of Lovers Lane, Paran, and as being such a track, Wanty Walk cannot be barricaded? Question 1. Question 2. Is Council aware that the once popular Shamrock Track near Harrietville is in a very poor and dangerous condition in its lower section, with access point signs removed from both ends, although there is a sign at the intersection of Cemetery and Great Alpine Roads, and that the bottom track entry is barred by a local person at the only bridge crossing the Ovens River into Crown frontage? That's the background. The question is, does the Shire intend to maintain this track? Nice short question. Thank you, Mr. Littlechild. I'll get the Director of Community and Customer Service, Ms Havercroft, to answer question 1, and I believe the CEO or the Director of Assets will answer question 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your question, Brian.
Yesterday, Council put out publicly a request for quotes broken into two parts relating to establishing crown boundaries along Morses Creek and Windillagong and possible options for future reinstatement of a Wandy Walk in Windillagong. Council is aware that the river in parts crosses into private land. I'd request that people in the community remain patient as council officers work through this process. Council is aware of but offers no comment on the court case you reference.
So those, question one. Question two, CEO.
Thank you, Mr Littlechild. So the Shamrock Track's located on Deaker land. The bridge on Monarch Lane is not a council asset and it's not on council land that we manage. Council does not promote this track to the public in any way and neither does Tourism North East. So it's not a track that we have any involvement in at this stage and Council does not have any plans to take on any responsibility at this stage for the Shamrock Track. I talk from some experience because back in 2018 I was involved in a lot of engagement with the Harriettville community around this specific issue around the bridge over the Monarch Lane Bridge. I engaged with the landowners, I engaged with the Harriettville Community Forum, and we spent quite a lot of energy and effort trying to unpack this one, and we were unsuccessful at that time in finding a way through the various land ownership, bridge asset, bridge condition issues. So at that time a decision was made that from Council's perspective we were stepping away from any attempts to get involved in that track or the bridge that accesses it.
I will allow one comment. There is a microphone there if you'd like to use it. Thanks, Mr Littlechild.
Thank you. This is a quick question. There is a sign on the corner of Cemetery Lane and Great Alpine Road that indicates that the Shamrock track is still open. Is that sign going to be removed?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Littlechild. I was unaware until your email that the sign existed. We'll have a look at the sign, establish whose land it's on and take the appropriate action with that sign.
Right. Thank you. Question two is from Mr Mick Lamb regarding the NRMA Caravan Park. My name is Mick Lamb. I have two questions regarding the NRMA Caravan Park. The first requires some context prior to the question. I will précis the background. I'm the occupier of Site 198. Question at last month's meeting, a question was raised regarding the leak at this site. Responses noted at the meeting from Park Management or NRMA was that the caravan was on a concrete slab and would have to be removed or repaired, fixed, and they were working with the owner, me, to resolve. This is totally incorrect and fabricated. Approximately following clearance. Secondly, the management have made no attempt or instigated any conversation on a solution with me personally since it was discovered in November 2022. In fact, so we get to the questions. My question is, does the council believe it would be fair and reasonable, given the length of time since the leak was detected, for Park Management or an NRMA representative to have sought advice from professional leak detection companies who have the resources and technology to locate and repair leaking pipes without removing the structure? As an example, you wouldn't knock down a house and rebuild it to locate and repair a leak. My second question, is it the expectation of Council and the Committee of Management that any major maintenance issues that poses a potential health and safety and or hazardous risk, in this instance the leak, to any campers or members of the general public moving through the park should, in all reasonable circumstances, be repaired in a timely manner? Is 16 months considered timely and will any action be taken? And I believe that our Director of Assets, Mr Rees, will respond to those questions.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, Mike. In response to your first question, yes, it is reasonable to expect the leak to be investigated in a safe manner. I actually attended the site yesterday to understand the extent of the leak, and the park manager and operations manager for NMRA are arranging a suitably qualified contractor to do an investigative dig to unpack what the problem is. From my observations, it will be a rather difficult and risky job to excavate under the caravan and associated annex just due to ground conditions, and the contractor that will be engaged will need to determine whether that's possible and safe to do. In terms of Council's expectations as the Committee of Management to have matters resolved, yes, it is our expectation, and we're working with the NMRA to ensure that that does happen.
Thank you, Mr Rees. I believe that there is a requirement of the Committee of Management to actually undertake audits. When was the last audit conducted?
The last formal audit was on the 27th of October 2023, and that identified a range of works that need to be undertaken. There are plans in place to have those completed, and subsequent to that there are ongoing operational reviews and addressing matters as they arise, such as trees, limbs hanging, etc. So it's a formal process on a quarterly basis and then an ongoing management on an as-needs basis.
All right. Thank you for that. Question 3 is from Bernadette Benson and regarding White Star Road, Wandillagong. When does Alpine Shire Council plan to confirm to Alpine Shire residents, including particularly those of Wandillagong, that it has been fully aware that 105 White Star Road was a freehold property with no riparian reserve since at least 2016? Could I have the Director of Custom and Community to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can confirm that 105 White Star Road is a freehold property. However, at this time, I am unable to confirm the presence of any riparian reserve. During a protracted planning application process from around 2016, Council and the current owners of 105 White Star Road worked together to try to secure ongoing access to a walking track across private land as part of that planning application. That was a planning application process rather than a consideration from a water tech or a legal perspective. However, Council did not commit to any of the available options since the application would later be considered by VCAT late in 2021. The VCAT process effectively superseded all previous discussions on the matter, and VCAT ordered Council to issue a planning permit with no conditions referring to a reserve or walking path across the land. The owners of the affected properties have shown commitment to maintaining access but were not able to procure public liability insurance and therefore chose to close public access. As previously stated, until investigations are complete, I implore the community to desist from any antisocial behaviour and direct any concerns to Council. And please take advantage of any other walking tracks in Wandillagong for the time being.
Thank you, Ms Abercroft. That completes the questions on notice in writing. I'll now call for questions from the floor. The microphone, I think, is very simple. There's a button to push. Just state your name, where you're from, and then 2 questions. So, who would like to take the floor? Please. It's for recording purposes. Thank you.
My name is Virginia Venden Price, and I'm here representing the...
I don't know whether the mic's on. Sorry, Virginia. Thanks, Brian.
My name is Virginia Venden Price, and I'm here to represent the Upper Kiewa Valley Community Association.
Thank you.
Following the severe storm and heavy rainfall in the Kiewa Valley over the last few months, there has been major wash-away damage to one particular bend in the river, which is very close to the Kiewa River Trail. And if there is a further slip, the trail will be impacted and trees lost. NECMA and the Shire have been contacted for assistance, but with no positive result. What should now be the considered and best approach by the community to have this damage repaired?
Thank you. Good question. Who does it sit with?
I'm happy to take this one.
Thank you. The CEO will respond. Thanks, Virginia.
Thank you, Virginia. I became aware of this issue yesterday when a member of the UK VCA contacted the office. So I wasn't aware of the conversation with NECMA, and we will take that up further with NECMA. But I think it's worth pointing out here that the reason we weren't aware of it and the reason it's not in our system is because there was an informal conversation had with a member of our staff. And I would strongly encourage members of the community, when they see issues, to log it through our customer service team, because then we've got a reliable means of actually tracking where it's gone and what's been done with it. So in this particular case, there's no record of the conversations that were had. There's no record of the advice that was sought or any discussions with NECMA. So essentially, we're starting from this point in time. But I do commit to having a look at that, and one of the team will engage with NECMA to see if there's anything we can do with that situation that's been described.
Good. and there should be a report, or UKVCA should be able to, they should be able to pick up that information, or we should be able to get it to them, all right? So you can distribute that then back through to your membership. Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
My name's Ray Dyer, and I have a couple of questions, but one thing that I'm directing at the Mayor at the moment, because he made a statement last month that he recalls that me speaking about the toilets for 12 years.
That's how long I've been on council, Mr.
That's
Dyer.
how long you've been on. You know how long I've been speaking about the toilets around?
Probably longer than that, Mr. Dyer.
19 years I've been talking.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
I've just been to the one at Centenary Park today, and is it Shire's practice in the disabled toilet, in the male's toilet, is it the Shire's practice to have a big toilet roll just sitting there on a bar, not in a holder or anything else? No, it's not.
Thank you. You've answered your question. Next
Now,
question.
hang on.
No, I'm not going to hang on.
All right, you reckon that's a question? All right, no problem. The other issue is I spoke to Will about a year and a half ago, and I spoke to him and I said, why was the poplar tree cut down near the Scout Hall in Myrtleford? He had no idea. He said, I'll get back to you. Well, he's never got back to me. And as far as I'm concerned, over the last 4 or 5 months, the amount of trees that have been cut down in Myrtleford, around Myrtleford, and there was one the other day cut down in the main street, right next to where the police station used to be. I would like to know the reasons why those trees, because I've had all I had was for the trees out the showgrounds. There was a dozen red gum trees that were over nearly 70-year-old that were cut down between the golf course and the recreation reserve. The one at the council chambers in Myrtleford, the liquid amber straight out the council chambers. The one at Ruby's Milk Bar. The 4 pine trees that were cutting out of Marion College School on Prince Street. And I'll keep going on a few more if you like. But why is it that the Shire seem to think that they can cut trees down any time they want to? I would like to have a look at the records and the information why every one of those trees was cut down.
Certainly. Would you like it in writing or electronically?
I would like to see it in writing as to why the reasons those trees were cut down, especially the ones in the main street.
I think, I'm not sure if Mr. Rees can answer regarding the one near the police station. No? I can give you an answer to that. Or actually, Councillor Janus can answer that one for you.
Thanks, Mr. Same problem as you, right?
What'd you say, Ron? Can you speak up?
I say I've got the same problem as you.
You have a problem with me?
No,
Okay,
the sound thing.
no problem.
Yep. So the one outside the police station, which I lovingly saw grow over many years, had been categorised as being unsafe, and I think it might have even been hit by a bit of lightning, and it's broken out. So I was amazed to see it being cut down, but I did see a Facebook post giving the reasons why it was cut down and why it needed to come down. So once I saw that, I was happy about that. I don't like them seeing taken out of our streetscape either, unnecessarily. And I don't think that one was taken out unnecessarily. It was a good shade tree and all the rest of it, but it became dangerous for the public. So
Just for a little bit of information, Myrtleford has no seating in the shade whatsoever, virtually. And if you keep cutting the trees down, we need shade as much as we can, the way everything's going with the environment and everything else.
Don't disagree with you there.
Now, as for Will, with the one at the Scout Hall, I think straight out he wasn't being honest with me one bit, because he would have known exactly what that tree was all about.
Wait a minute, please.
No, I'm serious.
It may not be the situation that the CEO knows where every tree is and what's happening to it every day, right?
He never got back to me either, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry?
He never got back to me. After a year and a half, he never got back to me to why that tree was cut down in the first place.
Perhaps we couldn't find you, Mr Dyer.
The reason why it was cut down was because you want the splash park there.
No.
That was the reason, and Will knew all about that. He's been knowing about that splash park for a couple of years
Do
or
you have any
more.
other questions, please, Mr Dyer?
I followed that one up too, Ray, and it was a dangerous tree and it had to come down. I did follow after you.
All right, as I said, I would like to see the information on every one of those trees, the one in Jones Street, the one in Prince Street, the ones out the showgrounds, because I was told with the showgrounds it was
We will have something in
a
writing for you
government that
next
did it.
council meeting. Thank you, Mr Dyer. Any other questions tonight?
Oh, no, I'm only allowed 2 questions.
You are only allowed 2 questions.
But the
I
biggest
can
problem
answer-
with this
I can
shire
answer
is
one
there's
of
no
your-
accountability
I can
whatsoever.
answer one of your questions from last meeting.
Yes.
Regarding the contamination rates.
Yes?
And the contamination rates are sitting, and back me up if I'm incorrect here, but they're sitting somewhere close to 100%.
100%. In other words, all the rubbish goes into the...
Exactly.
That's
So if
exactly
you
what I
want-
thought.
And so if you would like to do something about that, you can start educating the public, and you can start this weekend with Clean Up Australia, if you like.
I've done it many a times with the Scouts, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
that's good, and I think this weekend we should be promoting that as well.
So when it comes to accountability, I've been speaking about the recyclable bins in town for how long now? Nearly 6 months? And it's taken all this time to be open and accountable with me. I'm talking about accountability. I've talked about leadership and communications 3 times, but I've seen no accountability in this shire for the last 20 years, and I'll fight for that well and truly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other people from the public would like to ask a question? Thank you. Please come forward.
Leanne Boyd from Bright. I wasn't actually going to ask a question, but I've been doing some reading, so
Thank you.
it has been sitting on my mind. I just wanted to
Could you hold the mic up just slightly higher? Thank
make
you.
or ask a question, actually. The traffic analysis that was done for Gavin Street with the roundabout and possible where the service station is.
Yes.
Was done in 2022.
Correct.
2022 was an unusual year, and anyone around town can tell you this, that we had 30%
Yeah, less
extra
traffic.
people into town. So is it
Thank
truly
you. Thank you,
indicative?
Leanne. We have, councillors have asked that question of officers as well, and I think we do have a straight answer for that regarding when the traffic counts were actually done. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Leanne. It's absolutely correct. The traffic counts, as noted, were done in January 2022, done in the holiday period leading through the Australia Day long weekend. So there were no COVID shutdowns at that period of time. However, we do accept that the normal traffic hadn't returned at that point in time. This is the best information we have at the moment, though. This is the traffic analysis that was done back in 2022.
Yeah, my point to that was a little bit, I know there was no COVID, but we also had a huge influx of people escaping from Melbourne. All businesses in town were probably 30% busier than they are this year. That's my point. Is it truly indicative because we got overrun with people and now we're...
Right, so does your observation then lead to the question as to whether or not the traffic count is overstating things or understating things?
Overstating things.
Overstating? Right, okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So the traffic report said that every junction performed excellently through that period. So it's hard to see how it's overstating it. It didn't pick up faults, as I've said in the council report. It said that the junctions performed very well. And as I noted in my report, I don't see an argument personally for upgrading the junction today. It's about planning for the future.
Yeah, and that is my point, because in 10 years' time, so right now, are we at 70% capacity or are we at 50? If it was busier than it should have been? That's my question.
Thank you. It's how long a piece of string is.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Leanne. Anybody else from the gallery? No? All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for those public questions. It always puts us on our mettle and brings out some interesting things. Thank you, Mr Dyer. Presentation of reports by officers. Chief Executive Officer, Mr Jeremy, 8.1.1, contracts approved under delegation by the CEO. Thank you very much, Mr Littlechild.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the recommendation is that the following capital project contracts are approved under delegation be noted. So there's 3 contracts here. CEO's delegation is $200,000. So wherever I approve a contract for a capital works project, I'm bringing it to council for that transparency. So we've got 3 contracts here. All of them have been subject to a public tender process prior to award. The first one is for the Myrtle Street Service Lane reconstruction with an award to Stadelman Group Proprietary Limited. The second is for curb and channel renewal, which is to LM Landscaping and Irrigation Proprietary Limited. And the third one is Standish Street Roundabout Asphalt Overlay, which is to Bitchy Mill Proprietary. And these are all parts of our standard road renewals programme. So recommendations as noted.
Can I ask which roundabout in Standish Street that is?
Outside the,
The one up towards the Shire offices or the one on the highway?
only the Shire offices, because that's a big road.
So
The other
I was
one.
told in 2017 that roundabout would be sealed then, and it still isn't yet. Surface overlay.
Wish to answer that?
Thank you, Mr Dyer. We'll have to, unless Alan's able to answer, we'll take that one on notice.
So moved. Thank you. And Councillor Kelly, Councillor Janus, any queries on any of these contracts?
I believe it to be up near the old council offices, because that's the one in the worst
Condition? Yeah, it's the worst condition. Thank you. Thank you. Those in favour? Or did you have a question?
I had one question.
Sorry,
Thank you.
sorry.
Don't worry.
Councillor Kelly, question first?
Just one question. My understanding is these are put forward because they're within the, for transparency, they're within the CEO's delegation. Can I just confirm that the same procurement process is followed, though, in terms of the criteria that's applied within for contracts of this value?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Yes, I can confirm that we follow exactly the same process. So we establish criteria and weighting, and then we assess each of the tenders against those criteria. And I'm presented by my team with a recommendation report that outlines what those criteria and how the assessment has been carried out.
All good?
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Item 8.1.2, 1 to 3 Anderson Street, Bright. There are some recommendations here, and this is a CEO report. Thank you, Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report relates to an opportunity that's been presented for council to purchase the freehold site and the fuel service station business, which is located at 1 to 3 Anderson Street. So that's the Shell service station located in the centre of Bright. So what I've outlined in this report, I've provided some background, which was the process that we followed to get to this point through an expression of interest process. The opportunity became available from late November. Council officers initially established that this was a site of potential interest for council because of work that we'd done previously, which was the traffic assessments and some other strategic planning work, which had identified this particular site and this junction of interest. And we worked through a kind of preliminary assessment process to establish whether there was any value in taking this any further. And this led us to the point of an expression of interest, which council officers, so I made an expression of interest in January on behalf of council. Now, that's a non-binding expression of interest. There's been lots of speculation in the community, which is incorrect, that the site has actually been sold. It's a non-binding expression of interest, and it's subject to a council decision. So we're working through a process to gather information in order to provide a recommendation to council in relation to the potential purchase of that site. And I can say transparently that I'm not yet in a position to know whether that will be a recommendation to purchase the site or a recommendation not to purchase the site. We're still working through that process of investigation, with the expectation that probably at the March or perhaps the April council meeting, we'll be in a position to present a recommendation to council. Now, this process of establishing an opportunity, assessing that opportunity, and then working it through to a recommendation is not unusual, and this is not an unusual case. So I'll give you a couple of examples. In Myrtleford, there was an opportunity presented to council to purchase a site in order to establish some flood mitigation infrastructure, and council worked through a process which ultimately led to council purchasing that site. So that's an example in Myrtleford. In Mount Beauty on Toowoomba recently, we were presented with an opportunity to look at the Toowoomba Scout Hall, A similar process followed where council officers assessed that opportunity and ultimately presented a recommendation to council to purchase that, and that went through to a purchase as well. So there's nothing unusual about this process. It's part of our job is to look for opportunities, to look to the future and establish whether there are opportunities that are of interest to council and the community, and work through a process and then ultimately present a recommendation to council on that opportunity for their decision. So what I'm foreshadowing in this report, though, is a process of community engagement that we'd like to start to essentially draw out the feedback from members of the community around the opportunity that's been presented to council, so that when I package up a recommendation to present to council, it's got we've got an awareness of what the community's views are. We've allowed the community to have some input to identify what are the other potential opportunities which could be done instead of this one. We can look at what are some of the issues that the community see and whether they've seen the same set of issues. So this report tonight is to essentially note that we've put in a non-binding expression of interest on behalf of council and the conditions associated with that expression of interest. To note that we're going to commence a community engagement process to draw in feedback from the community to help council make their decision. And that notes that a recommendation will be presented to council at a future council meeting for them to make a decision in relation to the potential purchase of this site.
Thank you, Mr Jeremy. Could I have a mover and thank you, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Nicholas, thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I think CEO has outlined the reasons there for these particular recommendations, the fact that it's a non-binding expression of interest, and then noting the community engagement. These things do take time, and there is certainly precedences over the last many years of shires buying particular bits of land. Even I think in my first year, in Myrtleford, in the middle there, not the courthouse, but in that area there, to open it up, Piazza. And, you know, the recommendation is where it's at the moment. I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Nicholas.
Similar to Councillor Keeble, I think the paper says a lot about what we're actually talking about here. It's the start of the process. But I did want to note in the paper it talks about 11-something plus years that there might be a problem in Gavin Street in particular, and this process will start to look at how serious that might be and what other options are available to mitigate, as well as what we could do with the whole site if we did end up purchasing it. So I think it's a really good process, and it's great that we've got an opportunity to look at it for the betterment of Bright as a long-term project.
Councillor Janus.
Just a question for the CEO. If some business came along, or an individual with a bag full of money and said to the seller, I'll buy that now, would there'd be nothing there to preclude them from doing that, would there? We haven't signed anything to put any of that future proponent in jeopardy at all. We haven't got dibs on it at this point, have we?
Thank you, Councillor Janus. There is nothing to stop the sellers selling to anyone else at this point in time. So there is a risk there. We're in a commercial negotiation. There's a bit of tension here from my perspective between the need to follow an appropriate due diligence process and carry out community engagement at the same time as having a potential seller sitting, you know, at the other side of the negotiation waiting for a decision. So there is some tension, and it is correct that if another buyer turned up with a big bag of money and wanted to buy this site, if I was the seller, I'd probably say yes and move on.
And if there was a negative recommendation to council to not go ahead with the purchase, would you be bringing that back to council?
Thank you, Councillor Janus. Irrespective of the recommendation, we'll bring it back to council. So whether it's a recommendation to proceed or a recommendation not to proceed, we'll bring it back to council. My understanding from the vendor is that if the recommendation is not to proceed, there are other parties that are interested in the purchase of this site, and the vendor will work their way down the list onto the next interested party.
Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to congratulate the officers for being outward looking and thinking about strategic opportunities for our community. You know, this is an opportunistic consideration, and you need to be outward looking and to be thinking about the future to see these as potential opportunities. I did have a chuckle with Ms Boyd's question from the audience or from the gallery today. I wrote in my notes that January 22 was that post-COVID bumper summer, and the queuing for a loaf of bread was significant, or anything else you wanted down the street. I really encourage folk to respond to the community consultation. I think this is a pretty unique opportunity that probably might not come around or can't be anticipated again. So, for me, it's the long-term amenity of the area, the current and future traffic flows of all vehicles. We have a lot of other types of industry in our area that we need to accommodate, plus bikes and pedestrians, and that tourism hub as well as for our residents. And I think also thinking about the short-term impacts of the decision as well, and service stations are going to be around for a long time, and I think it's great to have competition in that space. But in the medium term, having a service station in the middle of town may not be as attractive as it is today. So, look, do encourage folk to respond with the community consultation. We're genuinely interested in people's views on what council should consider the future of this site being. If we get that opportunity, I think that point's been made as well. And terrific, it'll be coming back to us regardless of the feedback and the process. There's still a recommendation to come. So a really good process. Thank you.
I just take up Councillor Kelly's point that it will be coming back to us. Somebody showed me a Facebook post recently where Alpine Shire Council had categorically bought the business. So please don't just rely on things like that. It's you've got to come to the source of truth if you really do want to know what's going on. Thank you. Any further
Kat's got a name.
Yes, certainly. Councillor Hughes, did you have something?
I did just briefly, Councillor Kelly did touch on most of what I had down here too, but I think this, this bigger picture is the strategic value that general location holds for the town centre of Bright and what that can mean in the future. And this is where we need, as council and councillors, to have those discussions and be applauded for looking proactively into the future, not being reactive. Which is one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about, is that we need to be more strategic and they want to see these types of things. So I think it's a really big question to ask, and it is a very big thing to start diving into. But I think what we're urging here with community consultation is definitely that we're wanting to hear both sides, because we do talk to people who are very much for and very much against. You're always going to have that. So to be able to get a holistic view of what our whole or a very big population of our area is actually looking for when it comes to this, so that we can have further direction, not only on this site, but on other strategic and proactive actions that we might take in the future as well, and what that might look like.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Keeble. Any final words?
No final words. All good, thank you.
All good, thank you. I'll put this to the vote for those three recommendations. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We also have another... no, that's it for the CEO. Thank you. Move on to the Director of Assets, Mr Alan Rees, 8.2, funding applications update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This report relates to the recent applications made by Council to available grant funding opportunities to support infrastructure projects. By way of background, recently the Alpine Shire Council has had the opportunity to apply for funding to the Australian and Victorian governments for infrastructure grants. Following an assessment of Council's project pipeline, it was determined that specific infrastructure projects met the criteria of the Australian Government's Bridges Renewal Upgrade Fund and also the Victorian Government's Local Sports and Infrastructure Fund. In terms of financial implications, if Council is successful for these grant applications, namely the Bridges Renewal Upgrade and also the Local Sports and Infrastructure Fund, a maximum co-contribution of $130,000 and $173,518 will be required respectively. From a consultation perspective, these projects have been nominated because they've been identified as high priorities on Council's project pipeline. Consultation has been undertaken to ensure that the community and referral agencies are supportive of these projects which have been nominated. The projects that have been nominated have been selected based on their alignment with the funding, eligibility and evaluation criteria as well. So in summary, it is recommended that Council follows the recommendations, noting these applications, noting the project specifically for the Local Sports and Infrastructure Fund, and that Council approves expenditure up to a maximum of a Council co-contribution for each project in the event that one or more of these funding applications are successful.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Janus, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Janus.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question in relation to the Star Road Bridge. I note in the issues part of the paper that it's subject to, some historical, I've lost the page, heritage controls on that. We know the age of that bridge. She's been there for a long time. And 130,000. So what are we actually going to look at with the Star Road Bridge? Is it a pedestrian or is it upgrading for heavier vehicles or what?
Thank you, Councillor Janus. So there will be an upgrade to the pedestrian accessibility on one side of the bridge, also upgrading the deck and the load-bearing capacity and some other remedial works that have been identified as part of our annual bridge inspection program.
Well, I'm pleased to see the pedestrian upgrade because that's the amount of young people and particularly in our busy times that try and get across there and young families with prams and things, it's quite congested and it's, you know, equally as bad as the Nimmo Bridge in Myrtleford. So I hope we're successful with that, and I'm glad to see that we're also looking after Mount Beauty and Dinner Plain in these grant applications, so we spread the love. Thank you.
Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. Good to see some opportunities for some funding grants in this current climate that we're in. The Dinner Plain pump track, is that similar to the Mount Beauty pump track, which is asphalt, a hot mix? Or is it demantable so it comes down in winter?
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. No, this is a fixed infrastructure in the recreation reserve as you enter Mount Beauty on the left-hand side, and was a concept design has been completed as part of the Dinner Plain activation project. So this will be a permanent installation.
Nice. And just for people, the rec reserve in Mount Beauty, the lighting upgrade is not. The lighting upgrade won't be enough for playing night games of football or cricket or whatever. It's to enhance for the training facilities. Is that correct? Yep.
That's correct.
And the Les Pert one, this particular funding round is to have projects that are ready to go and not to overstretch everyone because there's a lot going on. So it'd be good. That Les Pert Oval is a critical aspect in the Kiewa Valley and in Mount Beauty, so it'd be good to see that concept design after all the work that's been done over the last few years.
Any other councillors have comments? Sure. Yes, Councillor Nicholas.
It's we haven't got the funding yet, but it's terrific to see that the council continues to work towards improving our recreation opportunities for our community and visitors. So great to keep your eyes on the ball and go for funding when it arrives, when it's available.
Thank you. I think two interesting points have come out of this one. First is that as Councillor Keeble said, shovel-ready projects. Council officers are continuously working on projects which may be 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years out. However, if they have them on the shelf ready to go, when a funding application comes up, they'll be able to get it because it's ready to go. The other interesting thing, when you look at the council's contribution to the funding request, 1 in 3. So council is quadrupling its money, actually, its effectiveness with these grants that we can get through. So these are the ones that we want to try and get hold of. Right, put this to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. That has been carried.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, can I please
Yes.
call point of order?
Certainly.
A councillor has been sent a personal message. I'm not sure where it's come from, just in relation to bouncing around on the video. Can I please make mention that this is not acceptable behaviour from anybody outside or inside of the organisation towards any of the councillors, and that they are here, they are present, they are making contribution, and also sitting out of their control where they currently are on a 30-something degree day, making the best of what they can.
Thank you very much. I know whom you're referring to and appreciate that. And thank you for being in attendance. It is unacceptable behaviour, and Councillor Prime, if you would like to turn your camera off, that is quite all right. 8.2.2, Myrtleford Transfer Station Office Construction and Fit Out. Is that the new wording up on the screen? In my pack, there is something slightly different. Thank you. The recommendations. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rees. 8.2.2, Myrtleford Transfer Station Office Construction and Fit Out.
Thank you, Mayor. This report relates to the award of a contract for the Myrtleford Transfer Station Office Construction and Fit Out. By way of background, in March 2023, Alpine Shire Council applied for funding under Sustainable Victoria's Community Economic Council's Fund Round 3 with the purpose of implementing a tip shop at the Myrtleford Transfer Station. Council's funding application for the construction and implementation of this tip shop was ultimately successful, and we received notification on the 27th of September 2023. The project scope includes the fit out of the tip shop and the construction and fit out of the transfer station office and road work and car park upgrades for public access. In terms of the procurement process, the scope was advertised following Council's normal procurement process, published in the Herald Sun and also on tenders.net. A total of 12 prospective tenderers downloaded the documentation, and we received 1 conforming submission. Following assessment of these tenders, it was determined that the tender from Colin Joss and Company Pty Limited, i.e. Joss Facility Management, met all requirements of the selection criteria and provides the best value for council. In terms of issues, notification of the successful grant application was received after the 2023-24 budget had been adopted by Council, and the project has been progressed to date as an unbudgeted expenditure. Award of this tender is contingent on approval by Council of an unbudgeted capital expenditure.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Nicholas.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. We've been well briefed on this particular aspect and the reason why it's unbudgeted, and transfer stations, tip shop, in regards to the circular economy, some of these things come up and we need to get them done. So we've been well briefed, so I'm happy with that.
Councillor Nicholas.
Not only have we been well briefed, but tip shop's been on the agenda for at least 4 years, probably 6 or 8. And it's terrific to see that we're finally getting towards a place where there's really constructive community recycling and it helps to reduce landfill. So that part, and then also the safety and wellbeing for our staff when they work in an isolated place, such as our transfer stations, is really important. And yes, well briefed and happy to support.
Thank you. Councillors? Yes, Councillor Janus.
Just a quick one, having had the experience of being your meet and greet man at the tip in Myrtleford some years ago. Great job. The conditions that I worked in at that time were pretty deplorable. However, and it's good to see that our staff are getting looked after in this area. And one of the things that was quite common in the time was people did want to recycle things, so they'd climb up the top of the metal pile with all the sharp bits and pieces to try and get a bike wheel or something that was of interest to them, and the possibility of falling and opening themselves up like a tin of sardines was always there. So this is a responsible way for recycling, and it also offers our staff that are working there, the conditions that they deserve.
Good. Agreed. Any other commentary? No? I've got one question, and that is that the current transfer container office, I'm assuming, is an asset of the Alpine Shire. Have we got a position for that to go to, or will it be sold on? What will happen to it?
We will obviously take responsible action to deal with that appropriately.
Right. You don't have
the
any
exact future of it, I can't give you a clear answer at this point in time.
It's early days. It's early days. Thank you. All right. Okay, those in favour of these recommendations, please. Thank you. That is also carried. 8.2.3, January 2024 storm events update.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to update Council on the impact caused during the storm on 3 January 2024 and seek approval for unforeseen expenditure related to the reinstatement works. Just by way of background, on Wednesday, the 3rd January 2024, a significant storm event occurred in the Alpine Shire. The storm caused widespread damage to council infrastructure across the Shire, impacting particularly significantly on our trees. In particular, in the Upper Kiwa Valley, the areas that were most heavily impacted include Mountain Creek Road, the Toowoomba Tourist Park, Dams Road, and the Frieders Lane area, through to the Mount Beauty Transfer Station. By way of issues and available support, it was important for Council to act quickly to reinstate infrastructure damaged by the storm event, and Council officers moved rapidly to secure contractor resources to support the recovery, recognising the high demand on contractor resources post the emergency event. Commonwealth State Disaster Recovery Funding was announced on the 11th of January 2024 that the jointly funded disaster assistance had been activated, which now included the Alpine Shire as part of the event identified on the 24th of December 2023. Specifically, 3 contracts have been awarded within the first 48 hours of the storm event, which have relied on the procurement policy exemption under our standard procurement policy, which states that under specific circumstances, exemption from the methods of this policy may be sought. These 3 contracts were particularly for dealing with trees, 2 for tree care, and 1 for Keith excavations. In terms of financial resource implications, the January 2024 storm event was unforeseen and therefore not considered at the time of the 2024-25 budget or 2023-24 budget being adopted by Council. In total, 17 separate contracts have been entered into to date, with the cumulative value totalling $167,227. Significant outstanding works to be contracted, this is not yet contracted, include hazardous tree removal along Frieders Lane, Fieldings Lane and Madison's Lane, and the processing of over 300 trees into firewood. These works are estimated to cost an additional $50,000 to $65,000.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I think we had some information about this at our last council meeting as well, about the storm damage, and this one here is really around about the expenditure and note in recommendation 2, because of genuine emergency and so therefore procurement, the normal processes aren't followed because that work had to be done to clear the roads for emergency services and public to get around, and so that's completely reasonable for that to happen. And you know, we thanked everyone at the last meeting. We'll continue to do that because there's still a lot of work to be done there, as you've pointed out, with some trees that need to be removed from those lanes and those roads. And I know that council will try and recoup the funds as best they possibly can. I note that you mentioned about the firewood. I took a trip down there the other day. There's piles of mulch, good mulch. And at some stage, I guess that wood will be cut and the Shire will be communicating that to the public. So thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, great to see, you know, expedient response and use of our resources in these circumstances. One question I have for Director Rees, that the response to the Toowoomba Caravan Park and the Make Safe in terms of trees and things there, under the lease that the operator of that caravan park has, do they ultimately foot the bill for that kind of work?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Trees are an interesting asset class when it comes to responsibilities in caravan parks. Typically, council takes responsibility to ensure that regular inspections are done. In this particular case, it was really all hands to the pump, and we'll work through the cost recovery after the fact. So I'll have to take it on notice in terms of who's actually responsible for what in terms of that particular scope.
Yeah, no, look, I accept in emergencies, you know, these things aren't of concern, but it'd be interesting to just understand in the lease where these things sit. So.
Any other commentary, councillors? No? Right, I'll make one comment, and that is that I've had an email from the Honourable Melissa Horn, MP, pointing out that Alpine Shire is the recipient of a $100,000 grant towards this clean-up. That email only arrived earlier this week. I believe there are probably some criteria and a few little hoops to jump through, but I don't think they're too arduous. So I think that's good. So regarding dot point 4 here, I think we're well on our way for the recovery. Thank you. Councillor Keeble, any last comment? No, thank you. Let's put this one to the vote, please. Those recommendations, those in favour? Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you. 8.2.4, the Bright Senior Citizens Centre Community Asset Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council an amended instrument of delegation for Council's endorsement due to the Bright Senior Citizens Club ceasing to operate. In December 2023, Council received notification from the Bright Senior Citizens that they would cease to operate, and it would no longer have representation on this committee, requiring a change to the membership structure. And this report effectively is required to provide a decision to reconstitute the membership of the committee.
So moved.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Janus.
Sorry for butting in there.
No, that's good. Thank you.
I wanted to start by thanking the members of the Bright Senior Citizens Group who've run the Senior Citizen Centre for a long time, such that it's even called the Senior Citizen Centre. My kids used to go there for playgroup, and I know we're very respectful of the other people who use the facility. It's a fabulous facility, and they've been a really supportive and active organisation, so thank you to those people. It's terrific now that the U3A are moving across from the community centre, because again, that's now a really active group, and wonderful to see the space being used. But Mike, I do have a question about the community centre space and whether there's another use for that already, or what might happen in that space.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. I'll have to take that on notice in terms of what the future plans are there.
I'm doing it wrong. That was a Dorothy Dixer, because I know there's some youth work going on there. I look forward to hearing about that in the future. So I guess the rest of my commentary is that this is effectively a very administrative matter to make sure we've got a committee to run the facility. So that's me.
Excellent. Councillor Janus?
Yeah, just briefly, many of the members of U3A were also members of the senior citizens, and they've just transferred over their skills and will help those members at U3A to continue with that facility, and give them an opportunity to look into new ways to enhance their learning throughout the day. And I know the Myrtleford U3A is a very successful one, and I'm sure the one in Bright is here as well, and it gets people out and interacting with each other as community. So, yep, good to have that keep going.
Commentary. Thanks, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor. Just one question on this for Director Rees. In terms of the committee structure and governance there, so we're sort of going from, I think it's 6 committee members down to 5 through this change, but we're also seeking 2 rather than 1 now representatives from the general public. Just if you've got any insight, did we have 1 member of the general public in the last structure, and are confident we can get 2? Are general public members not allowed to be members of U3A, or do they just wear a different hat in that forum? I'm just curious on the governance there.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. I'm afraid I'm no expert on the governance, so I'll have to come back to you on the ins and outs of how it all works.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the Director coming back to us? No? Thank you. Just commentary from Councillor Janus, that is that the U3A is very strong. I think Myrtleford boasts something like 220 odd members, and I think Bright's very similar. So they're a very strong group. So you're quite right, it might be tricky to be general public and U3A. Right, let's put that to the vote. Just while I say this, Councillor Prime is having low battery problems, so if we don't see her on screen, she's promised that she'll just shout out yes at any voting time, or no, depending on what she wishes to do. So if we don't see the video. Thank you. Those in favour of these recommendations? Thank you. That has been carried.
Just as we move on, I just wanted to be sure everybody knows U3A is short for University of the Third Age.
Yes.
So it is about learning.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to 8.3, Director of Customer and Community, Ms Helen Habercroft. 8.3.1, the Quarterly Performance Report. But just before you launch into that report, something I just must do, and that is it's a thank you to Councillor Kelly, and this is from Julie Guest, who is the Chair of the Alpine Shire Audit and Risk Committee. On behalf of the Audit and Risk Committee, please pass our thanks to Simon Kelly for his past valuable contributions to the committee during his tenure. The executive team and other members have appreciated the perspectives he brought from his life and business experiences. So that was just passed on to you. Good. All right, thank you, Ms Habercroft. The Quarterly Performance Report, Council Plan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is the Quarterly Performance Report, and it provides the first update on progress for 2023-24, so the period from 1 July 23 to 31st of December. So some of the highlights are matched against the 5 strategic drivers that we have in our council plan. So strategic driver 1, for those who live and work. Community grants were awarded to 19 community groups in the 23-24 financial year, including 5 that increased participation in physical activity. The Alpine Shire Youth Awards celebrated local youth in September 2023 with more than 50 nominations and a great night out as well. Council Sport and Rec Master Plan is underway with user groups consulted and draft plans in place. The next steps will be wider consultation throughout the 2024. Strategic Driver 2 for a thriving economy. Festivals and event funding was awarded to 19 events and 4 events additionally in Dinner Plain was supported, with an upturn in the amount of events that were awarded grants in Dinner Plain, which is good to see. Strategic Driver 3 for the bold protection of our future. The Community Climate Action Plan Roadmap 2023 was endorsed by Council in October, with public lighting to low energy LED being completed, and the recommendations have been made for retrofitting council buildings for environmentally sustainable designs. The Food Organic Garden Organic, or FOGO, curbside collection service was introduced and operational from 1 July 2023, and most people will now have a green bin. So that's a big success. Strategic Driver 4 for the enjoyment and opportunities of our lifestyle. The draft Alpine Shire Land Development Strategy was endorsed by Council in October 2023 for the purposes of public exhibition, with the final strategy due for presentation in mid-2024. And Strategic Driver 5 for strong and informed leadership. The Engage Alpine online portal was launched in mid-October 2023 and is already being well used. Between October and December, the site received 4,517 visits, 434 contributions and 293 project follows, with a total of 549 members. Projects that were open for community feedback included short-term rental accommodation local law, the draft land development strategy, the Bright Skate Park concept design, community budget submissions and the Alpine Community Awards.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Keeble and Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. You could look at this report and say, oh, not much has actually happened, like, if you just looked at the weight of it, but there are some very important documents in there, including things like the Recreation Master Plan. That's been going on for a long time. And so really looking forward to seeing the community consultation on that one, because a lot of the information was gathered from the community a while ago. So it'd be good to, circle back to the community to get their feedback. Obviously, one of the big ones there is the draft Alpine Shire Land Development Strategy that was endorsed last year. I sort of shake with terror that it's coming up again in the mid-2024, because it's such an important document to go through. And then the Engage Alpine, having that online. That's been a great change. So those things are strategic documents and actions that have taken a long time to get to this space, and they needed to. That's okay. I just want to mention that it would be easy to read over those and not think that they were that important, but they are.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the list, I think the Community Climate Action Plan roadmap is also really important in this climate emergency that we're all living through and experiencing. And I also wanted to pick up the FOGO comment, because not only has it been rolled out, but because of the engagements that we've had and pop-ups, the people who have been involved have been finding out that even some of the people who are really opposed are actually enjoying the service and really appreciate having it. So it's interesting to see that people are honest and open when they, I guess, really not being able to change without something in front of them, without us forcing them to.
Can I just ask, on the FOGO one, I think we had this at a council meeting, but just as a reminder, how much weight or percentage of landfill has changed since the FOGO bin has been introduced? I know you mentioned it. Is it 40%? 20%? Anyway, it was quite a lot, wasn't it? It was a staggering amount.
Yeah.
And that stuff in the green bin is generally not contaminated. Yep.
I think our contamination rate was 0.001, as opposed to other councils who had a higher contamination rate.
Yep. So that just goes to the point of one of the earlier questions today, and that is that people at home are doing the right thing, putting things in the correct bins, but it's only when they're out in the public that they tend not to, which beggars the question. I just hate to think that it's all our temporary residents, the tourists, that are doing the wrong thing. It can't be. Our general public uses bins as well. Yes, Councillor Janus?
Yeah, I don't want to put, water on the parade here. However, when a member of the public puts a request into info@Alpine Shire, which we encourage them all to do, and they are allocated a number, which they get back pretty quickly because it's automated. I'm just wondering, can we tweak that system so that when they go back into the system to see what's happening, what the result may have been, or confine it, because some people put in multiple requests and they're not all that good at filing them on their computer. Can we look at the system to make it a little bit easier to say, if you want to check your request, push this link button here? I'm speaking for some of the more mature members of the public.
I will definitely take that on notice and see if those changes can be made to improve the usability of the service. But it's probably important to note that that's our customer service piece of work, and that Engage Alpine is our consultation platform, which is separate. So the information on there, if you ask a question, people who are allocated, so for the short-term rental accommodation, for example, myself and the communications coordinator were answering the questions as people were placing them in. So not in real time. I'd love to be in that situation, but when people had placed questions, I was responding to them, or they were making submissions in a normal way for a consultation process, whereas the customer service system is through info@, where you receive an automated response with a number, and then it's followed up, it's allocated to the right person internally, and then it should be followed up and being handled. So slightly separate systems, but I'll take that on notice to see if I can make those improvements.
Thank you.
Yep.
Be good. And let's advertise the fact that you can do it through our comms or when you go onto the site itself. Any other commentary on this? Yes, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. I know we're losing daylight here in the sense that, or other cliches, the clock is ticking on this council plan. You know, there's actually not many months left. So I think it'd be great before the period is out that there's a holistic reflection on that. It'd be great to see it as a singular report between now and I guess it's October, whenever that is. We can talk about that further. Okay. One question just on the strategy area around connection with people and places being strengthened, and in particular the Alpine Shire Rural Direction Strategy. I know it reports no activity to report in this period, but I think there has been work done in the lead up to. So will we expect some more material on that before the September or October or whenever that may be?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So Council will shortly undertake a procurement exercise to engage an appropriately qualified consultant to prepare the Rural Direction Strategy, which will seek to provide direction for the future use, development and conservation of rural land in Alpine Shire. The strategy will build on the Alpine Shire Land Development Strategy of 2015. It's expected that the work on the strategy will commence in April 2024 and take about 12 months to complete, which probably draws the second point that you raised. So the current council plan runs to October 2025, at which point the new administration will put in a new council plan, which has a weird crossover between elections and the councillors sitting. That's the way it goes.
Terrific. Thanks, Ms. Hathcroft.
Certainly. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I suppose I just wanted to point out here, with all of the strategic drivers that we obviously highlight throughout this report, that there is a very strong focus on community support, strategic direction, but a very clear increase in the engagement that council are having with our community on issues and things that are coming up, and how often that information's coming out for comment. So I just wanted to make mention that it's really nice to see an increase in the numbers and the visitation on the site. More and more people, as we advertise these things, are going to be, being better informed as the processes go on. And I think giving us the feedback on these processes and how they're working for you is really important to continue to get that better, stronger and more efficient as well.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble, any final commentary? Thank you. This is just noting that the performance report is to be received and noted. So those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. Item 8.3.2, the budget report quarterly review ending 31st of December. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of the Budget Report Quarterly Review is to provide Council with an update of our financial position for the period from the 1st of July 2023 to the 31st of December 2023, as against our budget that was set for 1 July 2023. So Council is forecasting a full year surplus at this time of $4.2 million, which is $1.5 million higher than the budgeted surplus of 2.7 at the start of the year. There's a range of reasons for the variances in that forecast, with some of the largest ones being additional other income of nearly $1 million, related largely to an increase in return on Council's investments, the reduction in the recognition of capital in our grants income of $1.22 million, reduction in materials and services expenditure of just a little over $500,000, and an underspend in our forecasted employee costs of around $900,000. Council continues to experience cost pressures and a lack of resources to deliver on some of the capital works programmes, and that's recognised in the recognition of that grants income. So it's not that that income hasn't been received into Council, it's that we don't recognise it yet in our accounts because we haven't done the work to acquit those bits of grant work. There's lots of other additional information contained in tables and graphs in the attachment itself. And additionally note that at the Finance Committee, in advance of the Audit and Risk Committee this time, the Finance Committee made some requests for additional information noting the cash reserves, the last page of the attachment, which will update some notes about how much is available funds and which has been set specifically to projects and tasks. And also we missed one of the notes in the amortisation of the report, and that will be updated for the March Q3 report. So the recommendation this evening is that Council receives and notes the budget report for the quarterly review period 31st of December 2023.
Councillor Janus. Councillor Keeble. Councillor Janus.
Yes, thank you. It was a good Finance Committee meeting that we had, in which those items will make it clearer for people to understand. One of the things that concerned me a little, although, the figures look good, but our rate cap is set on the 22nd of December 2023, just before Christmas, before everyone goes on holidays, by the Minister for Local Government at 2.75%, where advice from the Essential Services Commission, what are we saying here? The Australian Bureau of Statistics, the 12 months change from November 2022 to 23 was 4.3%, and that leaves us with a gap of 1.55%. So that's money we're not going to get in our rates. We can't put it up even if we wanted to, unless we go to the Essential Services Commission, which in fact is a lengthy process that we have to complete. We probably may not be successful in that anyway, but the time frame is short to do that. So it's a little bit unfair to make these announcements on the 22nd of December. And further to that is that the service rates and charges used for waste collection have also been subjected to that, and we will no longer be able to claim for litter and waste collection from public spaces and the provision of public bins and general and or municipal environmental activities such as park maintenance, public education and advocacy. Not mean that we're not going to do it, just we're not going to be able to get the money from government or ratepayers to do that. And that could leave us with, approximately $350,000 shortfall in our budget going forward. So, and the other one is because the library grant hasn't been indexed either, and we all love our libraries, there could be a reduction there of $5,800 in income from that. So this council, I believe, is managing its finances extremely well and having a look at all our expenditure right across the board so that we can continue to deliver the services as required to the population. So I think we need to be cautious of government's cost shifting back to local government. And there's many ways that they can do it. They're just by cutting our rate cap, setting our rate cap to 2.75 is just one way. It makes them look good, but we have to work harder to do that. Other states are not necessarily in the same position. I don't think New South Wales actually are. So that's just some commentary around that. But I do congratulate the staff for managing our budget so well. And there are other expenses that will be coming forward to us. We're currently in an EB arrangement with staff. So that's, that'll be another expenditure going forward. And that's one, personally, I'd be happy to pay because our staff do such a good job.
Agreed. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, and concur with Councillor Janus there. In the reduction and recognising the capital grants income, 1.2, just to note, the cost pressures that are written there. And I think that is right around the country of Australia, the cost pressures to getting work done. The cost of materials, if you can get your hands on the materials. So, while the finances there is a good story, some of the, particular capital works that we might want to get done may not get done this year because of cost pressures and lack of the resources through no fault of anyone, really. So just put that out there. But I know that the team is doing the best they can to get what they can.
Any other councillors like to make comments re the budgetary constraints that Alpine Shire is facing? Councillor Kelly.
I'll reserve my views on budget constraints or rate capping to a later meeting. I did have one question, Ms Havercroft. There's a reduced expenditure on swimming pool maintenance in there, circa a bit over $250,000. I was just sort of wondering if, and you might need to take this one on notice, just what may have driven that reduced expenditure? I know some pools are year-round, but yeah, I'd be curious to understand that.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, and I will have to take it on notice. Thank you.
Any other commentary? No? Thank you. Right, in that case, this is this report, it's for noting, so the recommendation is for noting the quarterly review. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Okay, a new one, 8.3.3, the draft borrowing policy. Thank you, Ms Havercroft.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A draft borrowing policy has been developed for consideration and approval for release to the community for consultation. And following an analysis of Council's financial policies, we identified a gap in that Council didn't have a borrowings policy, didn't have a specific borrowings policy. It does make mention of borrowings within our revenue and ratings plan, very briefly at 5.6, but it doesn't go into the reasons and how we might go about the borrowings in any detail. So this policy sets out the circumstances in which Council will undertake borrowing and manage, if it has any, its loan portfolio. The purpose of the policy is to provide clear direction on the authority of council or council officers to make borrowing decisions.
So moved.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Keeble.
Thank you, Mayor Forsyth. A fair bit of administration here, which is good because we need to get this one looked at. Note that we haven't done any borrowing since 2015. The council has been very good in staying within its means of the income and then expenditure out. It doesn't mean to say that the council would never borrow money, but we have had a kind of an unwritten law of using the money that we have rather than borrowing. But we do need a borrowing policy, so that's a good pickup in our policy stash that we didn't have that. So looking forward to that coming to a future ordinary council meeting.
Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Matt. You might ask why have borrowings, and I guess in a large organisation we have many resources we need to call on to do our business and invest in our community, and in a large organisation a borrowing can be one of those resources. I think in simple terms some borrowings are good and some are bad. You know, good borrowing is on an asset that you'll use from day one or for a long-term purpose. It can also mean you're investing money for future generations that will also have the opportunity to pay for that investment as well. Some loans are bad. Borrowing to meet your daily needs or to meet the day-to-day needs of the council are not good loans, and this draft policy explicitly addresses those concepts and principles. So I look forward to hearing from feedback from the community on this.
Any other commentary? We may have lost Councillor Prime at the moment. She may be coming back online if she can find another device. Right. No other commentary? Thank you. The borrowing policy, let's put it to bed. Those in favour? Thank you. That's been carried. 8.3.4, the 2024 Council General Elections, the Victorian Election Commission putting costs onto the Alpine Shire. Thank you. Ms Havercroft.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The next general election for Alpine Shire Council is scheduled to occur in October 2024. And these are the charges that are presented to us by the Victorian Electoral Commission of their expectation of costs to run that election for the new councillor cohort from October 2024.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble.
And I'm making it quick, I know. I do apologise.
Seconded, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. This is the thing that we have to do, that all shires have to do around the state, and ratepayers need to know that it's incumbent on shires to pay for the election. That is what the legislation says from the Victorian Government, which is the cost shifting that Councillor Janus was talking about earlier. It's up around the $200,000 mark. It's business that has to happen, unfortunately. It has crept up every time. It does get more and more. But I don't think the amount of increase in our population in our shire has gone up in the same percentage.
No.
Anyway, it's a necessary evil. It's a chance for everyone to vote for their local councils, their local members, and it is in October 2024.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. By my back of the envelope, it's about $15 a vote.
Yes.
Is the cost. I'd be curious to, and you know, I'll take this one on notice to compare with other local governments what the cost is. You know, perhaps it's a similar kind of metric they use, but I'm a little curious, so I'll take that one on notice.
Good thought. Any other commentary regarding these costs? No, it's necessary evil. Okay, the recommendation is there. Those in favour? Thank you. Have it carried. 8.3.5, instruments of appointment and authorisation, planning and environment. Another one. Thank you, Ms Havercroft.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I always enjoy doing these reports because they're a sign that I have recruited a member of staff, and in this instance, a new statutory planning coordinator started with council yesterday, and this is the paperwork to enable her to make decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. And Councillor Hughes, thank you. Councillor Nicholas?
I think my enthusiasm and
Yeah, I think it
Severcroft's enthusiasm says it
speaks
all.
volumes, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Thank you.
Fabulous.
Councillor Hughes?
I reiterate that one too, Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you. Any other commentary? No? Yes, Councillor.
I'll just
Councillor Keogh.
congratulate all the council officers and the director for, it's been a long road finding planners. It's not easy. I'm sure you've done lots of interviews, or people, someone has, you have. So well done on securing another planner.
Can I
Good.
just,
Yes,
can I just
certainly.
add to and thank
Councillor
you to
Nicholas.
the person who has taken that role over the last couple of years, I think, and done very well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, terrific.
Yes, please pass on council's appreciation. Thank you. All right, let's put this one to the vote. Those recommendations, those in favour? Thank you, that is also carried. Item 9, informal meetings of councillors. We have 3 there. Thank you, Councillor Janus, Councillor Keeble. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Presentation of reports by delegates. Anybody been to? Thank you, Councillor Nicholas.
I attended the Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance General Meeting, which is a group of people who come from shires across the Hume region, including the Alpine Resorts Victoria now. Probably the most interesting thing that we do at the meeting, apart from hearing about projects that are underway, is around the regions, and we learn from each other at that situation. But I actually learned about us at the last meeting, as well as other shires, and the interesting statistic that was put forward as one of our around the regions points was that we've reduced our corporate carbon dioxide equivalent emissions by 75% since the 2018-19 year, which are the scope 1 and 2 emissions, and they're the ones that we can really do something about. The next year we're planning to try and include scope 3, which is more about what we buy and emissions that we can't directly control. So terrific work there from our team and from us to setting the targets. But I also heard from Mitchell Shire, which something I thought was really worth relaying, and that's that they've put out a combined corporate and community climate emergency action plan, which sets not just a target for the Mitchell Shire corporate emissions, but also for the community. And the community net zero aim is for 2043. They work through with a group of community members, and there's a bunch of goals and actions. I will send a link to the councillors and senior exec, because it's a pretty interesting plan. But I just wanted to put it out there because I think it's a direction that it would be really constructive for the Alpine Shire to go. One of the other things that was raised was one of the reports, one of the projects that we've got running, which is about the resilient public estate, and that in particular is looking at what the effects of increasing rainfall and sudden floods through the climate changes that we're seeing might have on infrastructure. So looking at the risk to infrastructure, particularly from high water. It's really big picture at the moment, so there wasn't much for the Alpine Shire in particular, but a lot about bridges a bit further down when the rivers got even bigger and fuller. So that's a bit of a watch this space project that I will keep talking to us about as it happens. But a really great meeting, Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance, and a really constructive way forward.
Thank you for being the representative on that. It's well worth it. Councillor Hughes, you have the delegates report. Yes?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to just put it out there as a board member on the Alpine Children's Services that an expression of interest for candidates for the non-executive board directors. It's still up and available. So if it's something that somebody it's not a major impost. It's actually a really interesting process and there's a lot to learn. And I think that if there are any community members out there that feel like they have something to add, that this could be a really good opportunity to start looking at some new skills. So jumping on the website, having a look and reading through the information there, I just urge people to just branch out a little bit.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Any other delegates? Yes, Councillor Janus.
Yeah, thank you. Just to the Audit and Risk Committee that I attended on the 16th of February. Obviously we spoke about risk management. Some of the items have already been addressed this evening, so I won't go back into that again. It was a good meeting, and there's a lot of skill base out there that council can take heed of the recommendations of that committee as well. I think it's all meant to make the organisation more accountable, but also help us with our day-to-day business. It's not all having a crack at us, but it's there to help and engage with us to ensure that our business runs in the best possible manner.
Thank you. I don't believe there's any more delegates tonight, so leave your microphone on. Thank you, Councillor Janus. General business. Any general business?
But 2 items. As you mentioned earlier, Sunday is Clean Up Australia Day, and those people that can get out there and be safe about it when you do it, because you don't know what you're going to pick up in the grass. Some things actually move when you're not going to be able to touch them. A lot of the land care groups have organised those. I know Myrtleford has. I'm sure Brighton, Kiowa Valley have got something organised. So it's a good day to get out with the family and clean up our environment. And there's one thanks I forgot to mention earlier. I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, but it is to our CFA volunteer firefighters who are doing an extraordinary job, particularly in the west of the state, and District 24, which I belong to, have sent a strike team to Beaufort to assist their compatriots over there and the community to be safe. So we can always rely on our volunteers, whether they be SES, CFA, whatever, to, when the chips are down, to stand up and help community. So I'd just like to recognise, in this instance, the CFA.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Two items also. The first one sort of goes back to some an earlier question tonight and around the Wandy Walk resolution. And I guess I use the term resolution because we don't know what will be resolved through this process. Ms Havercroft, you mentioned there's an upcoming engagement to sort of commence, I think, a detailed land survey. Are you able to sort of step out the next couple of milestones that will then follow once you have that report? Obviously not knowing the result of the land survey, but what the next steps will be, without speculating the ultimate result there.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So the RFQ that we've put up is coming in 2 parts. One is to undertake the Crown boundary surveys to establish where the river does enter private land, so it goes in and crosses and then comes out. And then the second part, and we're asking for quotes for A and B or either or, is really related to the options that might be available based on that information for the short, medium and long term. So yes, I can't say because I've got no idea what the surveys might show, but then the range of options for us to consider as a council officer group for recommendations to council going forward for what might happen next.
And time frame on those engagements, are they 6-month undertakings, 4-month? What do you sort of anticipate there?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. The time frame that I'm anticipating for the RFQ is a fortnight. So by the end of next week, I'll know what tenders I've had back to undertake that work, and we don't anticipate it would take longer than a month to undertake that work. And then the part B is probably quite a long exercise of research and engagement, not necessarily with the community, but engagement with experts around how rivers move and what those options might look like and what the process is for some of those options might look and feel like.
Okay.
So I don't really have a time frame, sorry.
Yeah. Well, it feels more like mid-year that there may be some appreciation or understanding of the lie of the land and what could be a potential resolution.
Unless an immediate sort of slam dunk appears, yes, that sounds like the right answer.
Sorry.
There you go.
My second one, similarly, I know the short stay accommodation local law, the consultation period is closed for that, and I was just keen to understand the next couple of steps on that piece of work as well, if you've got them handy.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So we've wrapped up the consultation and we're now reviewing all of the submissions that we've had and ensuring that we've answered all of the questions that came through. We had a small issue in that they were being held. This was the first time we've used it for real submissions. It was being held in our spam folder, so that's being continually checked to make sure that none have been sitting there. So their submissions have been recorded, but their commentary, the actual questions that they're asking. So once I've got satisfaction that I've answered all of those questions, we'll have a workshop to work out what the sentiment and the feeling is from all of those specific bits of feedback that we received. There were quite a lot of submissions that were specific to an individual property, trying to establish how it would affect an individual person's business or how they're using their property at the moment, and trying to work out how we categorise that as a piece of feedback, because actually they're asking questions that in the normal run of things might have come through info@, to work out is it a pro or a con for having the short-term rental accommodation local law. So we're working through that with a view that we have a recommendation to council in mid-year for the imposition or not of a local law of this nature.
Terrific, thank you.
Councillor Hughes, any general business?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of a flow-on effect to the point of order that I mentioned earlier. This is my personal view. I thoroughly enjoy immersing myself in the strategic direction and discussions that we have with executive councillors and our community, and it has been a joyous ride. However, the way that we as councillors can sometimes be spoken to isn't acceptable. And if it was the other way around and we were speaking to general public the way we get spoken to, we would have official warnings, we would be kicked out, we would be investigated, and it wouldn't be tolerated. So I just want to make it really clear that that kind of discussion towards us at the same time, and this is across the board, I'm not talking about just the incident tonight, but personally on several occasions this week alone, that we want the same respect that we feel that you are entitled to, we want that back. We are here to help the community. We are here to answer questions the best we can, and if we don't know the answer, we will find out for you. Council is not responsible for everything that happens within the Alpine Shire, and I just want to urge the community to please have some respect when it is that you're speaking to us, because guess what? We're answering the phone when we're taking our kids to the splash park. We are answering the phone when we might be engaging in our lunch break at work. We are on all the time, and we just ask that the same respect be given to us that we try every day when we're speaking with the general public. Thank you.
Yes, common courtesy and respect is it's a lovely human trait. Those that don't show it, I don't think deserve our respect either. So thank you for that, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Prime, I'll come back to you. Councillor Nicholas.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask our team how we're going with the EV charger prospectus and when we might be looking at more EV chargers around the Alpine Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. We're just in the process of finalising that report, and there'll be some briefings to Council in the coming weeks, and then we'll progress from there.
Thank you.
Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. I also wanted to note the CFA and people helping out and all the services over in the West. I also wanted to note that the next 2 days will be hot in our area too, and for everyone to keep an eye on everyone else. especially people who are vulnerable. Make sure themselves, their pets, all get enough shade and water the next few days because it's going to be hot. So keep an eye on each other. It was last year we had a report on the Bright River Pool, and one of the recommendations was looking at the amount of incidences over this summer. In 2 days' time, summer is finished. I just wonder when, when will we see a report like next?
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. As summer draws to an end, we'll have a debriefing meeting with Belgravia, and once that report has been completed, we'll be briefing council as we've discussed, and that'll then inform next steps.
Excellent. Councillor Prime, did you have any general business at all?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, Joe.
Oh, good. Thank you. Sorry if I speak up. How's that? Gosh, sorry everyone. I just wanted to apologise for tonight. Unforeseen circumstances, and I have managed to make it. And for community members who choose to not very politely contact me and notify me they've got a problem with me, I'm more than happy to speak to you face to face. But I do apologise, and thank you to everyone, councillors and executives tonight. Sorry, it's been a bit interrupted.
Very much, Councillor Prime. CEO, general business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing from me tonight.
Oh, that's a change. Okay. Item 12, motions for which notice has previously been given. We have none tonight. Item 13, reception and reading of petitions. We have none tonight. Item 14, the documents for sealing. We have 4 documents there. Are there any questions first on any of those Section 173s? Clarifications? No? So could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Kelly, thank you. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. At this point in the meeting, Leanne and Virginia, thank you so much for attending tonight. I now close this meeting to the general public. We do have a confidential matter that we will be discussing. So, look, thank you very much for attending.